Welcome to the Animist podcast. I'm joined here today with everybody's friend Ethan Bonreal, and today we're going to talk about improvement. So we're going to start off with specifically about improvement is what is improvement, right? What do you think improvement is, Bonre?
Oh shit, that's a good ass question. I don't know. I think improvement is trying to put intent into action. So you have something you intend to do and you find a way to incorporate that. Because obviously Smash ideally is a two-player game. So you may have stuff you want to do in the game, but making it actually work while dealing with an actual opponent is very different from just, being in a training room or playing against CPUs who kind of just
Yeah,
throw a dice and let you do some things.
that's kind of the main thing I tell people as well whenever they're asking like how to improve, because a lot of people look at like placements or who they're beating as like signs of improvement. But a good example here would be Bori, right? I think I talked about this in the last episode where I watched him fight G Meister, and I was ready to like pop off really hard because he was actually like, he wasn't playing phenomenal, and he wasn't like outplaying him super hard. He was just like there was significant improvement because he knew how to like move around platforms, recover, input specific inputs on his character, uh, and to me that's improvement. You know, like if you can move around instead of holding shield in neutral in a tournament setting, I think that's more improvement than like getting top eight at like a 22 man local instead of getting like 13th or ninth.
Yeah, I think especially in Boris' case, there's like very um visible improvement. He has gotten noticeably better. Unfortunately, that doesn't always result in immediately getting better results, but it does make you
Yeah, like
like holistically a better player over time. I think something people stumble on a little bit is that improving doesn't necessarily automatically mean you're going to just immediately start beating people. It's kind of the implementation part that matters a lot.
yeah, that's a really good way to put it too. Because just because you are improving doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get better results. It doesn't mean because you got good results once or twice doesn't mean that you have significantly improved either.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
and that's always good to remember because that kind of sets you up into this kind of circle of pain and misery when you mistake your results as like this is me, like this has always been me. I actually watched I follow a couple of Sheik players, and there was one Sheik player that I was following where they were like, why was I able to get like second for like the past like five locals, and now for like these next three locals I've been getting top eight but not second. Like what is so different? And it's kind of like they're kind of facing the reality that just because you placed well before doesn't necessarily mean you'll always do that because that's just not how it works. Because there's
Yeah,
always going to be
exactly.
new people, or there's always going to be people who figure you out too.
Yeah, something people tend to do, and stop me if you've heard this before, is they kind of assume that stuff like ELO or placements works like anime power levels. What I mean by that is in anime, there tends to be kind of an explicit hierarchy of how like good or strong characters are, where it's like the main character, their rival, and then like maybe one of their friends is like top three. And that basically, outside of the very beginning of the story where everyone's pretty even, like that just kind of stays in place. It's just like Goku is almost always stronger than Vegeta. If Vegeta is stronger than Goku, that's very temporary because of some development, and Goku's on his way to restore like the natural order of being stronger than him.
Yeah,
But people in competitive games are not necessarily like that, because for one, people are always improving simultaneous to you.
mm-hmm.
The reason why people beat other people is primarily because they are doing something in their gameplay that allows them to win. And so once that stops happening, then you stop automatically winning. So it's like if you're playing against someone who is very good about punishing your roll habit, um, and you stop having that roll habit, they just don't automatically win anymore. And that doesn't mean they got worse. It just means they're not exploiting or able to exploit something
Yeah,
that you're doing.
that's actually a good point because I live with Riley, and I don't know if people know, but I used to suck like really bad at this game. Not really. I think there was a lot more players too. Uh, but Riley would beat my ass when we started like playing locally during quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like constant three stocks over three stocks. And then I stopped rolling and things got better. But then she would exploit something else until like I just had to constantly be aware of all these situations at once. Uh, but she never really got worse. In fact, she got better too because now she just couldn't exploit that shit. Uh, but
Yeah.
something you mentioned about like this power level stuff. There's this one person. I'm not gonna name who it is, but you actually might know who it is. I remember them saying this once, where they were doing pretty well, like they were getting top eights, and this was right after quarantine. They were doing good. They got some good wins, and then after like a month or two, people are settling down. People are getting back on the grind, and they have a couple bad tournaments, and then they say something like, "Why am I losing to people who are worse than me?" And I had to like kind of explain, like you said, where people are growing simultaneously,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not growing at the same rate either. The time it takes for somebody else to grow is kind of based on resources, the time they have available. Talent is also a factor. Uh, Dedication and willingness to listen, uh, because that's something people don't do. They don't want to listen. Because I definitely see people asking in the Discord like, "How do I improve at this?" And also, you give good advice, and then they'll be like, "Nah, well, I'm not gonna listen to you. I'm just gonna listen to whoever else said something, but with like bigger words."
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, that tracks. I mean, I think part of it um is that people, which I guess, okay, actually, I think part of it is basically the point of this podcast right now is a lot of people just kind of mentally don't know what improvement is. They just kind of respond only to positive or negative feedback. Positive feedback being winning, negative feedback being losing. So it's kind of circuitous logic. Like, I am getting better because I am winning. I am getting worse because I am losing, instead of
Yes,
like, what is the systematic reason I am winning and losing? What are the things I win against and what are the things I lose against?
that is
So
extremely true.
so something I've asked people, and it's actually a little bitchy in retrospect. Sometimes I ask people, why do you think you like the character you like? And I mean this sincerely, even though it can be kind of mean-spirited to ask, but I met a lot of people before that I don't think they play anymore who played like kind of like zoners following kind of the Wi-Fi era that came from COVID. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, why do you think you like this zoner so much? Um, and I was trying to kind of explain, yes, it's a fun character, but I think you're not like, and so you don't want to really downplay people's accomplishments, but also at the same time, it's good to kind of be realistic. Playing this character lets you have a sense of control that kind of lets you bypass issues that you have with your core gameplay. So, like, basically, if you're throwing shit at people the entire game and you have control of them approaching you, your role habit doesn't matter as much.
Yeah,
Basically, you know what I'm saying? Like, you have so much control, you don't actually have to really worry about dealing with the stuff that like you actually have trouble with. And so that gives you positive feedback because you're winning, because you no longer have that habit to even worry about exploiting. But you never fix that habit. Like
yeah.
at your very core, when you do learn to play against people who actually do know how to get in, you do still have that roll habit. And so now it's more of a problem because you're playing a character that gets really punished for it. And so it's like you'll see people who did very well in like Wi-Fi tournaments and they start going to locals for the first time. And I'm just using zoners as an example. You could use anything, but they'll go to a local, they'll do kind of okay the first few times, and then they'll peter off and they'll wonder why. And it's like, well, it's because you're playing against people who probably are a little bit more flexible, and you are not like really questioning like what you are doing good or what you are doing bad.
Yeah, uh, that's actually a good point because the way to kind of improve in that situation is you gotta lose, right? Like, I don't think somebody's gonna improve by just beating somebody else's ass constantly. So when you play on Wi-Fi, and whether you play a zoner or a heavy, uh, or a character with just low end lagging, just mash like Falco, uh, you don't really have to worry about improving or covering your bad parts, like ever.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's kind of it's kind of how do I put this? Because when you were talking about like why do you play this character, why do you like this character? To me, whenever I think how somebody else would answer, it's to win, right? Because if you go on Wi-Fi and you play like a zoner or a heavy, like you have just a lot more chances to win, and it feels nice to win, and you feel like you're outplaying people.
Yeah.
Not to like say that nobody's good or anything, but there was a whole like quarantine where everybody was ready for offline to come back to prove that they're better than you.
Yeah, basically.
Uh,
I was gonna say kind of what you said before in regards to, you can't really get better if you're just beating people's ass. I do think that I think that's physically possible, but I think you have to have like a lot of emotional discipline and not really be like a
yeah,
serotonin goblin. Like I'll partially use myself as an example, but I'm obviously not perfect. Where with the character I play, I also realize they're just fundamentally really volatile. And this isn't me negging my character. They're just volatile. So even when I win, I have to like actually really think about why I won. Because it's like,
yeah,
okay, the second someone stops like doing something I exploit, it gets like a lot harder and more dangerous because, I'm very vulnerable to being reversed. So it's like I'll be like in my head, okay, like I'm winning primarily, like I'm losing neutral a lot, but I'm winning primarily because like I just fucked them up off stage. But if they learn how to get like recover better, that will be
yeah.
a
That'll be it.
problem for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to think in terms of like, okay, like why am I losing neutral so much even though I won? And I think that's very hard for a lot of people to engage with, where like I've had times, I guess before like the new people have been here, where I've just kind of been dismissive of winning something because it's like me losing neutral at all was kind of like losing in some way, even though I won the overall match. Like I shouldn't be like losing neutral that frequently.
Yeah, I actually get what you mean by that. And this is a good transition into like how to improve in this case, just because like I I have played against people where I'm kind of winning for the most part in friendlies. And when I try to think generally, is like, first off, I'm trying to figure out like, are they actually playing the game or are they like carried, right? Because some people will abuse certain facts about their character, like, I don't want to say a specific character because I don't want to call anybody out in particular. This is
I mean,
pretty.
it's honestly a lot of characters in this game.
Yeah,
I think Ultimate is designed in a way, looping back to what we were talking about before, where a lot of characters have some strengths that are so strong, they let them kind of like not have to engage with their weaknesses unless they
yeah.
are being pressured by someone very good.
Uh, that's true, right? So I was playing against somebody, and their disadvantage I found out was just awful, right? And that's why I was winning, because I just decided to just to push the advantage. Like if I had more stage control, then I would put the pressure on more, just because their disadvantage is just not good, and their neutral is very samey and doesn't really mix up outside of two different options. Uh, so for me to improve on that is just to, if I was the other person personally, I would have recognized that, but it's kind of hard to, because their character kind of allows them to bypass that because of how fast their frames are or how low end lag they have.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and it is really hard to improve, uh, whether you're winning or losing, right? Because if you're winning and you're improving, it's probably because you've lost before and have gone through the process of improvement.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Let me think about improvement. What do you think? What do you do to improve?
I usually, and this is what I recommend to other people a lot, I usually set very specific goals like, okay, I need to stop jumping in disadvantage. Or actually, if you talk to me like during season 2 or 3 of Ultimate, I said the same thing pretty consistently. And maybe Conti and maybe, well, I mean, King Catan and Tony remember. I don't know if they remember, but I would say stuff like, I need to learn to space my dashes because dashing is such a commitment in this game. I need
Mm-hmm.
to learn to space my jump in because I need to be ready to time the fact that like Ridley Nair starts beneath him and then goes forward. In against some characters that doesn't matter, but against other characters it matters a lot. And so I would just talk about like just very specific goals like that outside of winning or losing, where it's like, okay, this is how I judge this is a good match. I was not like um just mindlessly jumping into people without actually spacing the jump, or I'm not mindlessly running up and not realizing I can't get an attack out because of the dash animation.
Yeah,
Another one was, not spot dodging automatically in disadvantage as much. I still do that a little bit, but I was like, okay, my goal is to make sure I do not, panic spot dodge or um, just do something exploitable that either throws away my stage pressure or advantage state.
yeah, and I mean those are pretty good things to like think about, and I'm sure you're thinking about those like after and before the game. Uh, I don't know because when you were telling me about like how you were thinking, it kind of reminded me of Ray's. So Ray's and I are really close now, but like season two, he beat my ass a lot. Like you could probably find records of like 23-2, him winning. But there was a point where he beat me at like shenanigans, and he's like, "Do you even think?"
That's actually really
and,
funny.
uh, and I was just so taken aback. And it's like, what do you mean? Because he was asking like, "Oh, is that Nair safe?" Right? And I'm like, "What Nair? Like which one?" And he's just like, "Do you not remember like on the second stock that this happened?" And I'm like, "Nope." I don't remember shit. I don't even think about the game because my reaction times are really good. So I kind of just react. I don't even think like in the game outside of like this is the button I want to hit you with, and this is my combo starter, and this is my combo. That's it. Uh, and that kind of made me think like, all right, how do I think in this game while playing the game? And that shit was hard. And that's kind of what I learned in quarantine with improvement is because Riley thinks a lot. Like she is thinking out the fucking ass uh, when we play in friendlies, and I kind of try to think. And at first, it started with like I could probably get like one thought in every stock, and that's about it. And it'd be something like stop jumping, or like stop rolling, or they're doing this bad habit, punish it. And then it eventually, after like a couple years, like grew into like I'm not even like thinking about it. It's more like my brain has just is so conditioned just to think about it on the spot that I don't have to put the effort into thinking about it. Uh,
Yeah, that's usually why I recommend people just focus on 2 or 3 things at a time for a set period and then move on after they
yeah,
have like not I mean not a full mastery. We're never going to be perfect at anything, but where it's like you can pretty comfortably say having the habit you have is now like a good habit. You have replaced
yeah,
that habit with a good one.
uh, and that's true too. I think that's something bad ways people improve or try to improve is they'll like I need to learn and do all of these things at once and kind of like soak it all in. But in reality, like our scientifically, right, our brains can only really handle one or two things at a time when trying to improve. And realistically, the best way for us or anybody in general to improve is to try it like one or two things at a time. Because there are people who just don't know how to space their moves and could like get a lot better if they just learned how to space their moves.
Hmm.
And speaking about improvement and like all this like thoughts and focusing on things, the training mod pack. Have you used the training mod pack?
Yeah, I've used it for a few things. I'm still kind of learning to use it because it does have like a lot of shit in it. Like objectively, like
Yeah,
it can be kind of overwhelming looking at all the settings on it, but I've used it for a few things. I do remember when I first installed it, I literally opened it and was in the training room, and I was like, okay, what the fuck do I do now, though?
yeah. I had to look up a guide and everything. I had to read the whole like it's like 5 6 paragraphs of shit just to read it, and that's just the instructions. Like, uh, it's pretty overwhelming. I personally don't like it. IMO. For me, training for me, like going into the training room, I want to practice like specific interactions outside of just like one or two moves. I want like a whole sequence,
Yeah, that's fair.
so I can figure out how to get out of it, how to punish it. Because nobody's always fucking like running up F tilting once and then calling it a day.
Yeah, exactly. They're like buffering five other things or mashing spot dodge afterward.
Yeah, uh, and I've used it for like not tech chasing, but I used it to kind of learn percents because I realized I don't really know the specific windows on when to kill on certain setups. Because like
Yeah, yeah,
down tilt up smash will kill Wolf at like 80%, but it's not true after like 85%, or like
yeah,
after or below like 76%.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
so that's actually really helpful, especially with DI and all that. The Wi-Fi. Actually, I think Wi-Fi does help out a lot, even without the latency.
I
Uh,
agree. It definitely. I played a shit ton during Wi-Fi. For people who don't know, when I used to stream, when I was like, I had a job, but I was like looking for a second job or to like replace the job I had. So I had like too much free time, and I quite literally would like stream 8 hours a day, almost every day of the week. Um,
yeah, I actually watched a lot of those, and that's a lot. That's a lot of. But like the results have come in. Like even though you haven't really entered anything, uh, I've definitely seen like you're way better than most people already. IMO in San Antonio.
Uh, that's possible. I think I would have to like enter stuff regularly to determine, but I do think I have like actually a pretty good spread of matchup knowledge just from playing
Hmm.
Wi-Fi. Just because it just on paper it just exposes you to more shit than you're gonna see at a local. Because it's like
Yeah,
honestly, SA outside of DLC 2 is not even very top tier heavy. It's
no,
just
yeah,
it's just DLC 2 and then like mute
yeah,
basically. And then I mean now we have a Rob that shows up to things semi regularly, but we definitely which I predicted. I forgot about that. I literally said like I think 2 seasons ago, man, one day a Rob is gonna show up and just immediately just destroy everyone because SA has like zero Rob experience. We have only had like one Rob
yeah,
since season one. And the second someone is just like remotely good at hitting confirms on Rob and knowing
yeah.
like his frame data a little bit, they're just gonna like obliterate people and there's nothing they're gonna be able to do.
I think the reason why I think Rob fucks up SA right is because it's not that they run away like in neutral all the time, right? But it's I don't think a lot of people in San Antonio understand pressure or knowing when you're like in a positive situation. Uh, and I think they give that up too much. I think that's why when Rob just resets neutral, like you always need to be pressuring Rob, or else Rob's just gonna take your stock after hitting you once.
Yeah. I think something people really struggle with is understanding like um cost benefit analysis in Smash, where it's like they only see like neutral in terms of, okay, I got hit, so that's bad, instead of being like, okay, me acting passively is actively giving this person more opportunities unless I
Yeah,
have like a plan. Like it's not just playing passively. Like that's actually like literally fine. Playing passive or defensive is fine. But you
yeah,
kind of have to have a plan for it other than the other person messing up. Like you need to be like looking for specific stuff
yeah,
or have an idea of it. And it's like Rob, he has like very overwhelming neutral and advantage. Like he just gets an advantage very easily and can constantly do safe pressure. But if you're not in position to actually take advantage of him when he either makes a mistake or you know, you have the little bit of opportunity to mix him up and make him overcommit, because he does have to make decisions on like what
yeah,
very strong option he throws out. You know, if you're not close enough to like get him in disadvantage, because he does actually have a relatively bad disadvantage for a high tier character. it's not
I
it's
agree.
not
Yeah,
like it's not as bad as they say it is, but it's exploitable. And it's like if you're not letting yourself even get that percent to pressure him, then you're just like
yeah.
basically double throwing.
Or if you're not even like trying to shark them, but like, all right, I'm gonna be here, and here's your landing options. And that's what I kind of do. When I was flying Patu, I was actually watching my pods, and I'd position
Hmm.
myself in a way where it's like Patu is gonna land, and most likely Brobs will always land with Nair because that shit is cracked as hell. Uh, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna be in a spot where if they land with Nair, it's always gonna be in front of me, or they just don't land with Nair, and I can still do something out of it because they don't really have any other options outside of Nair. Maybe fair, maybe going to ledge. But I don't see people doing that enough. Granted, I had the benefit during the Wi-Fi era when we had the crew battle stuff.
Hmm.
Who was the one person we were, the one Rob player that we tried helping with improving?
Creamsicle.
Creamsicle, yeah, I actually got to play them a lot, so I definitely got the Rob matchup a little bit more than other people. Uh, but yeah, I don't think San Antonio was ready for Rob.
Yeah, you just kind of have to, again, it's like if you don't practice on Wi-Fi, you know, there's just certain matchups where if your local scene does not have it, you will just not have experience, and those are kind of characters you absolutely have to have experience against to do well.
Yeah, and with Wi-Fi, it's actually really helpful. Like you said, getting the experience, but like the atonement, one of the atonements before I went to there, I did pretty good. Uh, I was playing Wi-Fi, like quick play, Elite Smash, and oh my lord, that was awful. Like I did not have fun, but it helped me learn how to like beat people who are so like they are just doing this one thing to get carried, like up tilt, or it's like down tilt dash attack, constantly in the throwing projectiles. Because they're very like same. They do the same stuff. So it kind of helped me learn to think a bit more. And this is just all about like what Wi-Fi can actually help with. I know there are people who will be like, Wi-Fi is not a good help. I get worse when I go on Wi-Fi. Blah blah blah. Which is
Yeah,
valid. I think it's valid to
I
think
think
that.
I think it's kind of similar to what I was talking about before, where people basically like only judge if they're doing better or if something's useful based off of positive and negative reinforcement. And so, like, at the heart of most people's complaint about Wi-Fi, because sometimes I see people saying that, and I'm like, you play a character that's good on Wi-Fi, that doesn't make any sense. Is that they are basically not able to do what they want to do or play the way they want to. And so they just kind of automatically are dismissive of it, or more importantly, and this is the big one, they lose when they feel like they should have won, even though the
Yeah,
opponent is playing in the same conditions. So it's like, obviously, some characters are better on Wi-Fi than they are like offline. That's just kind of factually true. And some characters do lose some effectiveness for certain things they do offline or online. However, I think really the big thing is they're just mad they lost when they thought they should have won.
Yeah.
Even though
Uh,
someone else is also dealing with the delay at the same time.
that's a good transition into like bad mentalities with improvement, right? Because
Hmm.
this is something that I've always believed in friendlies. I don't think I've ever told you, but it's it's this idea of like they want to win and they only want to win. They want the serotonin boost of just winning all the time. So they'll like not try to learn or improve from their mistakes. It's just like I'm going to camp the shit out of this person. Uh, I'm gonna take it the time if it requires for me to win. Blah blah blah. I don't think people actually go to time. It's just more so the idea of like people are gonna do whatever it can to win rather than trying to improve in a friendly session.
Yeah. And I have a hard time explaining to people like why that's not like me just being salty at people being campy or something. It's really more um really the first thing I said is that there's often not intent behind it. It's really I don't know how to explain it. It's like a lot of people when they camp, they don't do it well. What they do is they just hope the opponent makes mistakes.
Yes,
Um,
yes,
and so they're like, well, in the context of a match, obviously that's fine because that is a way to win. But in the long term, if you're not putting intent, which is like the key word I had at the start, if you're not putting intent behind your play style and executing on it, that's not conducive to you actually getting better. That's you just fiending for a win. Like if
yeah,
I'm in a position where I only am winning because someone has like a bad habit where I'm just shield grabbing them all the time, um, I need to like figure out how to win if they drop that habit, basically. Like I cannot
yeah.
just rely on them being bad forever, basically.
Exactly, yeah. Because if you're constantly punishing that, and I mean, I would hope they'd eventually learn. It does take time to actually improve and see your results. Uh, but you said something that's like they're not doing it with the intent, and I think of that as like when people camp, they'll like throw out a projectile or like a hitbox and hope that you just get hit by it, and then do like the 80% combo they leapt, uh, which, like you said, is valid, but that's not really you winning or doing good at the game. That's just kind of like somebody fucked up and then they died for it.
Yeah, and I mean that's like a useful skill to have. It's just kind of like you can't settle for that.
Yeah,
That can't be all you do. You have to be pushing for like new knowledge for when people do drop bad habits. Because it's
yeah,
like to me what that is that's useful for beating good people or bad people, but you're not pushing yourself to be able to beat good people. And that's really like my I guess my key thing is like you need to be relying on actively getting better at the game. And you can get actively better by camping. You just have to have like intent and purpose in
yeah. Because
it,
like
basically. You
Z
have to like
three,
know what you're doing.
yeah, I think Z3 is a good example, right? Because everybody talks about her and the way she camps, but like when I see her camping and throwing projectiles, uh,
She has a
she
plan.
does, and she's actually like sometimes she'll throw like boomerang right in a specific way, and it's not gonna hit the opponent. It might be covering it, but then she'll get like a good combo off of it coming back, right? But
Yeah.
she like pressures them and sets them up. There was a really good clip that I actually kind of popped off for Young Link, where she like pressured them really well while the boomerang was coming back. So once they thought they were safe to like hit her, they got hit by the boomerang and she just fucked them up. That was actually kind of cool. Uh, and that's the point of like you can still camp and grow as a player, but like if you're not actually really thinking uh, or intent, you're right. That's actually such a good word for this. And that goes for like if you want to be an aggressive player or I just want to play neutral, you still need to have intent, right? Because I'll see
Yeah.
people with good advantage states with neutral that is just the same. And again, I don't want to call people out, right? But it would be a really good example. I need to get a list of people that would be okay of me using them as an example on here. Just because I see it sometimes where they'll like, okay, I'm gonna throw a projectile, I'm gonna nair, I'm gonna do this, and that's their whole neutral. And that's how sometimes I'll get a reverse three stock because it's like, all right, you're gonna do this, then you're gonna do this, and then you're gonna do this, and then you die. But they don't know how to stop doing that because they're so like used to just doing it and getting their combo off of it. And that's also the part of adaptation too. And you adapt, you learn to adapt after you improve on your lesser qualities.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I guess for an example, my recent, I guess, arc is I'm trying to work on getting better at maximizing my advantage state. Like I mentioned, I play a character that's pretty volatile, and he does have some good burst options. Like up smash is like very, very good at abruptly killing people if they misstep, but he's also very prone to being reversed very easily
Mm-hmm.
if he overextends at all. And so I'm like, okay, well, a way to bypass getting reversed is just to kill them, you know, like, learning the limits of how much I can pressure someone so that I learn where the threshold for overextending is, and I learn to look for new opportunities while I'm in advantage to like keep control to make sure they die. Just because being really ahead gives you more leeway with being able to win if you play a character that gets reversed. Because like if you get reversed after you take a stock, well, now you're just even. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's my weak spot is that I just kind of focus primarily on neutral and to a lesser extent disadvantage, but kind of trying to push myself to do something new
Mm-hmm. And that's doing
is the
something new is
play.
kind of hard, right? Because it's like, for me, for doing something new, I just try not to hold shield as much, and not as like a stop camping kind of joke, but like I looked at my recent VODs where I'm trying to see what the difference of me being more conscious about holding the shield button. Because instead of
Hmm.
holding shield, I could just dash back and be in a better position to punish something.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the times that I was holding shield, I wouldn't try to justify every time I did it, but there was times where like, okay, that was a good time to hold shield because I was able to cover these options.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think people struggle with thinking like that a lot. This is kind of a related example, and I guess we're running a little low on time here, but I'll throw this out here as quick as I can. So I notably play against Ultramash very frequently. He plays Captain Falcon. I play Ridley. I'm very, 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 very familiar with that matchup because I have been playing with Ultramash for literal years. Um, some players have moved from being in middle school to high school
yeah.
and are about to graduate. I've been playing that so long. And I also, for a while, when he played, would play with Captain Wah, and I would explain to him very plainly the way Captain Falcon beats Ridley is by going in.
Mm-hmm.
And he would be like, well, no, because you just hit me out every time. That can't be it. And I'm like trying to explain, like, related to what you're talking about, is you're just thinking in terms of, okay, going in is just walking up and hitting them. And it's
Yeah.
like, no, you need to calibrate that. Like, it's the way you go in.
Yeah, it's like going in sometimes isn't even like mashing a button in their face. Like literally taking up space and gap
Mhm.
closing against Ridley too. Like what is Ridley gonna do when you like gap close them? And most likely your options are gonna be Ridley's options in that case. Uh,
Yeah.
but people just really do struggle with being flexible about their thinking.
Yeah, because it's like from experience, um, like he would just be like, okay, I got negative feedback. I got hit out a few times, so I'm just gonna start camping. And stop me if you've heard this before. I would be like, okay, well, it's just gonna make it longer for you to lose, boy. Like,
Yeah.
like taps watch. We're okay.
Yeah.
Like, speed things up. Um, but like I'll play against Ultramash, and quite literally, it is not uncommon for me to lose in like a minute and 30 seconds.
I watch the stream sometimes,
Like
and
just
it's
getting 0 to death like the second he like looks at me. Because he like has calibrated it basically. He used to struggle against me a lot when we first started playing, but he learned how to like get in as Captain Falcon against Ridley. Like he was like optimizing like where he is jumping in, where he is using burst ranges, knowing how positive and or negative things are on shield,
yeah,
um, and really maximizing his advantage state and neutral pressure. And so because of that, he was rewarded with realizing, yes, you can actually run up and kill the shit out of this character because you can frame trap the fuck out of frame
yeah.
trap the fuck out of him off a shield interaction.
Ultra Mesh is
Um,
actually really good with improvement. I think he's a really good example of that.
yeah.
Uh, which is like, how do I put this? So, improvement has been a thing since forever, right? Season one, everybody wanted to improve. And I remember there was a time, and it was like a bunch of PR players. It was like KJ, it was like Kevo, Rally, Rays. And I was sitting with them, and somebody made a comment of like, these nerds just don't listen. Like, I tell them this is what they need to work on, and they're like, nope, I just need to camp even harder. Um,
Yeah.
and the only person that they really like, because I asked them like, who do you think here actually receives advice well? And they would say talk about you because you would at least try to use the advice, whether it was good or not. Uh, and I think that's a struggle that some people have is like they will just refuse to listen, or like they'll get their advice and like I'm not going to do that. I don't feel that is the right way to improve.
Yeah, and I think it's again like the two notes I've been hitting on over and over again. It's like it's both intense and then like they cannot deal with the negative feedback. Like having to lose a lot to get better and puzzle out like how to deal with a matchup is like so ugly to them that they would rather not try.
Yeah,
Basically,
actually,
like learning like I think I do think I kind of over valorize people playing aggro and hyper aggro, but I do legitimately think that is one of the hardest play styles in the game because you really need to like know frame data or at least
yeah.
feel frame data really well to understand pressure. Like being able to hit someone's shield multiple times while not getting hit in return when you're not playing DLC 2 XD. Um um while also like moving around them, throwing burst options out and just mashing aerials and disadvantage
Yeah,
is like that's just hard.
yeah.
That is
Actually,
objectively hard.
Ultra
Even
Mesh is really
though
good at that.
yeah, exactly. It takes a lot of active learning. You have to be thinking very quickly. And you have to know a lot about your character and the opponent's options in order to get away with doing that. And I think um, people, I don't know how to explain it. You have to, in order to learn how to weave around people's moves, you have to get hit by them a lot, basically.
Yeah.
And people do not want to get hit by, they don't want to go through the getting hit a lot phase, basically. Like that's just very
Uh,
ugly to them and scary.
I've told you about this before, right? And you might know what I'm getting into. So when Riley and I started playing, right, we played on
Mm,
Wi-Fi, and it wasn't. I was getting dicked on all the time. And then eventually we started dating, and then we would play locally, side by side, like LAN play. And I'd get dicked on so hard, and to me, I would like see improvement, but I would never win. I would never see the result. And that
hmm
went on for like we were like a year into our relationship, and we didn't start playing Smash until a year into our relationship. And for like 3 months, she would like dick on me, and oh my god, that is so painful to like play with somebody every day that is just so much better than you. That
Yeah.
I literally like if I did not actively try to improve myself as a human being, not to say I'm perfect or anything, but like there were times I definitely wanted to just to get mad and be like, "Fuck this game, fuck you, you're carried as fuck." Like, actually, there were times I straight up just said, "We're not playing anymore today." And she'd be like, "Wait, why? Is everything okay?" It's like everything is fine. Let's go do something else. And it's just I could bring her on here actually to testify, but that was actually really hard. And I know for a fact some people just won't be able to handle that. To like, they want to improve, they can't see the results because this is in quarantine, so there's no tournaments. You're getting dicked on every day. You're not winning, and anytime you're getting close to win, you don't. Uh, but that kind of helped me develop a mentality on actually improving. Because once tournaments did come back, I did really good, and I was like, maybe I am good. Like I wasn't so depressed of like, I'm like gonna get dicked on. I'm not doing good. Uh,
Yeah, actually, practicing with someone really good where you're earnestly learning from that experience and like progressively getting rid of bad habits and developing good ones.
yeah,
That is definitely very hyperbolic time chambery, where you like do not realize like how much you have improved until you play against people who have not been doing the same thing, basically.
yeah, but that's really hard, right? That's really hard because some people's mentalities, even now, they'll get upset because like, well, I lost to somebody that I thought that I was better than, and they're
Hmm.
like going on Twitter being really sad, which is valid. Your feelings are valid. Not to say that you can't be sad, but just being in that situation or what you said, trying to improve by losing, right? By doing
Hmm.
something new and opening yourself up to losing is really
Hmm.
hard. It's really fucking hard. I think I saw a couple of people actually go through that, and there was. I'll probably tell you in private, but I could like relate. I could feel the emotion. It's just
Hmm.
something I could. It's just really relatable that I felt from somebody else. Uh,
Yeah. Because it to me, it's not really about feeling bad because you lost. It's really like making the reality that we all have to lose eventually
yeah,
productive. Basically, like instead of just hyper fixating on the fact that you lost, why not hyper fixate on the fact that you lost because you did specific things? So that's good because you have the potential to stop doing those things.
yeah. Uh, that's something that we can end this off with. Is like, for me, I think a good mentality to have, right, is to do your best, right? And to go in with a goal. You need to go in with a goal with improvement in general, right? Like, if your goal is to be, I want to be top 10, we talked about this in the last podcast. If you want to be top 10 in San Antonio, day one, you're not going to get it. You need to like, set a boundary of like, I want to go to more tournaments. I want to go to this amount of tournaments every week. And I want to increase my placements by 10, right? Or at least I want to make top 8 at the smaller tournaments. That's a good goal.
Mhm.
Uh, and then you have to actively be trying because playing the game, not mindlessly, but just playing friendlies and just having fun and goofs, you're not going to really improve that much either. You need to take time and then set goals for improvement and then put intent behind what you're trying to improve and then actually do them. I think Ultra Mash is a really good example of this because when I first played him, he was really not that good. And I played latency with him recently, and like the gap of skill that he is like now, I have to. The only way that I know how to not get zero to death by him is by switching up my DI, because the training mod pack does not allow that. You can't switch up DI in training mod pack. Uh, so if I hold in for this many times and out this many times, he'll get a little fucked up. Uh, but he has set goals. He's got his feelings hurt. Ultra Mesh is a really good example of that.
Hmm. I agree.
What do you think people should do for improvement or like things to keep in mind?
I think honestly, having an earnest discussion with yourself. Are you playing to feel good about yourself, or are you playing to like get better at a game, basically? I think if you're playing to feel good about yourself, that's where kind of all of those negative habits come from, honestly. Like, you can't engage with loss if loss makes you feel bad, because like your whole goal is to feel good about yourself when you play this game, by being better than people in your head.
Yeah,
um So it's very hard to engage with loss in that capacity. Also, it's very hard to like if you fundamentally like think you are just better than other people automatically because that's how you hold up your self-esteem. You're never going to really take people seriously that are the same level as you because that is also a really bad habit people have. They'll go 3-2 and 2-2 and think they are significantly other people who go um score. They'll think other people that go 3-3 or 3-2 and 2-2 are like significantly worse than them, and obviously
Yeah.
that's like just literally not true.
Uh,
um and again, that comes from you're trying to use this game as a way to feel better about yourself by like imagining yourself being better than other people. And that's all at the end of the day hubris, because most of us are actually closer in skill to each other than we are um actual good players, honestly. Something I frequently say is, obviously without the exception of Mute, we are all like, in my opinion, we're all close enough in skill to actually, if we all really like legitimately tried hard, to be afraid of each other.
yeah.
If people got rid of those bad habits towards loss, because like I think most people's main issue is mentality, honestly. If they got rid of all of that hubris from their bad mentality, and like we're just very disciplined and strict with themselves about how they practice, we would all like be fucking up each other really bad.
Yeah. And then, like, that's why good players are good players for a reason. They know a lot about the game. And you made a point of, like, there's, like, good players, and then there's us, right? Players like
Hmm.
Mute. Uh, this is another, like, league reference, but there was this conversation on a Twitch channel. I don't really remember who it was, but it was about like do people think that challengers are closer to skill than diamond players? And to put this into perspective, only 100 people in a region are allowed to be challenger, if I remember correctly. And then you
Hmm.
have the 1% in diamond. And then the comparison was, are challengers better? Is there a bigger gap of diamond and challenger in skill than there is in gold and diamond? And somebody like pointed out why challenger players are challenger, why they are literally top 100, like
Hmm.
0.01% instead of the 1%. It's because they will fuck you up for any mistake. Like if you're not literally microing perfectly or constantly looking at the map or paying attention to small details, they're gonna fuck you up for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Mute with a fucking turnip is going to kill you.
Yeah, exactly. That was my experience playing with other top players. Um and then also watching like Megafox when he actually is like trying super hard, is that it's just kind of like, if you don't know specifically what to do or when to be afraid, if you don't have a plan and intent and knowledge about the opponent, you just die.
Yeah.
Basically. Like actually, I played a friendly against Elegant and he didn't even do the Luigi zero to death. He just like quite literally, like, I spot dodged once and he just walked up and killed me without even doing that. Like
Yeah.
I just was dead.
Uh,
um
that's
and
a
he did that to me like twice in a row.
I actually remember that because I played against him too, and like I thought Luigi could be good with the way his fair and bear were, but most people were just trying to like zero to death through grabs and just spamming grab. But
Hmm.
like I think I just air dodge, like directional air dodge, and he fucking killed me for it. And that's kind of the reality of these things, right? Like good players are good players for a reason, and all of us that are like top 10 and that aren't actively like if you're not Lima or if you're not like Mutace going to like other regionals or other majors and doing good, then we're all kind of in the same area, right?
Hmm.
Uh, some people could beat some of the PR. Some of the PR might lose to some non-PR. Uh, it's not like it's not that big of a skill gap with Mute. And
Yeah, and again, it's not like again anime power levels, because that's the other part of anime power levels, is that like in DBZ, if your power level is lower than someone, like if you're not within like a few, like I don't know, like units of power with them, you quite literally can't do anything to
yeah,
them.
yeah,
Like like your fist just bounces off of them while they just stare at you giggling.
Yeah.
And I think people think that's how like PR players are here, where like it actually drives me bonkers. I'm not going to rant about this too much. When like a PR player loses to someone unranked and people are like gasping and clutching their pearls and being like, what happened? And it's like, bro, that's just a dude.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they can
Like
just
literally.
lose.
Yeah.
That just happens. Like
Uh, and that does actually kind of trigger me, right? Because like people will get pure wins, or beat someone they don't normally beat, and it's like, well, now I have taken their power level. Like I am this strong now. But
mhm.
throughout the rest of the tournament, they don't place as well as the actual PR player did, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like Mute has lost to Wah, right? I'm gonna use Wah here because he was kind of mean to me. uh, but Wah didn't place well in that tournament. Mute won the tournament. You know what I mean? Like just because you can beat somebody in a set, like unless you're like consistently dicking them, like every other tournament, like if it's like 50-50 and you're like placing near them, then yeah, it makes sense. Like you're that good. But that's not the case here. like uh but that's a bad mentality to have. To think of like I am this person's level or that this person like is above me for whatever reason. Like Fairy Riley actually gave me. She told me that with some of the players she was fighting, like Skinny and Superperson,
Hmm.
where it's like she stopped really caring that they were playing Mario or like Steve or like Snake. It's like this person is just a regular person. They're bad. I'm gonna punish their bad things and then beat them up for it. And then she
Yeah,
did.
exactly.
And that was like the mentality difference that she had. Granted, she's actually really good at the game, but uh, that's something else.
Indeedly. That's how
Uh,
it be.
any other closing statements before we end off the podcast?
Nah. I hope everyone has a good day or night and remembers to eat their vegetables.
I need to do that too. Alrighty. Thank you very much for joining us today for the Animus podcast here with Ethan Bonreal. Hope you all have a good night.
Later, later.